In the previous video, we talked about the copy and mirror commands in AutoCAD. In this part, we also want to, in AutoCAD, talk about another duplication command called array. Stay with us until the end of the video. If this is your first time watching the AutoCAD tutorials on this channel, I put the playlist for these tutorials above. I'll provide it for you, and you can access the entire playlist by clicking on it. But now we want to talk about the array command in AutoCAD, which is one of the duplication commands in the AutoCAD software. In the previous part, we mentioned that in 2D AutoCAD, we have 4 duplication commands. We covered 2 of them in the last video. I'll explain one in this video. And in the next video, I'll talk about the last duplication command. So the array command is for when you want to duplicate one or more objects in 3 different ways. Now, what are these 3 ways? Let me start with an example. Suppose I have this circle here. And for example, I'll draw another circle above this one. I won't specify the dimensions for now. It doesn't matter to me at the moment. And then, again, using the arc command, I'll start from this point and say it should go up to here. Now, I'll trim this part somewhere so it looks like this. I'll erase this part, which we haven't talked about how to do yet. Okay, now I want to duplicate this in a circular pattern. Suppose this is a table and you want to duplicate this object 8 times around the table. This is a chair and you want to duplicate it 8 times around the table. Here you can use the array command. The shortcut for the array command is AR, so I type AR and press enter to enter the array command. If you pay attention here, as usual, like all editing commands, it asks you to make a selection. Okay, I select these 2 parts and press enter. After I press enter, it brings up this star-shaped option for you and says, which one of these do you want to duplicate, rectangular, path, or polar radial mode? Well, I choose the polar mode because I want to duplicate this radially and arrange it around this. So I go for the polar mode. Okay, it asks me where is the center of rotation? Where is the center of rotation? Is the center of the circle. So I click on the center of the circle. By default, it duplicates it 6 times. But for example, I don't want 6. Let's say I want 8. So now I need to tell it to change the number of items from 6 to 8 in the subcommands. If you pay attention, there's a subcommand called items. I go into items, and here it asks me how many I want. I say 8, so I type 8 and press enter. As you can see, the number has become 8. Or you can go back into items again and change the number. This is the first method of duplicating using array. I press enter to confirm it up to this point. But regarding the second method, it goes like this. Suppose, for example, for instance, it's one of the tables that exists in a restaurant and you want to duplicate it in 3 rows and 4 columns. Again, I need to use array. So I type R-enter. Once I enter, it tells me to make a selection. I select all these tables and chairs, press enter, and then choose the method. Previously, I used the polar method, but now I'm using the rectangular method. Why? Because it's supposed to be duplicated in a rectangular fashion. In fact, it's going to be duplicated in several rows and columns. So I go with the rectangular method. Now, as you can see, by default, it duplicated in 3 rows and 4 columns. It did this without asking me anything. This is its default setting. Now, I want to change my mind. For example, I want it to be duplicated in 3 columns and 5 rows. To change this, it's very easy. I just go to the rows subcommand from the available options. That is, I select the rows option. Here, it asks me how many rows I want. I say 5 rows, press enter, and as you can see, it has exactly become 5 rows. Now, very easily, it asks me how much space I want between each row. For the spacing, you can either type in a number or set it by clicking on 2 points. Specify exactly how much distance you want. For example, I want the distance to be from this point to this point. Anywhere on the page you like, you can select. It doesn't matter. So from this point to this point. Now, the distance from the center of this one to the center of that one is exactly like those 2 points I defined for it. Okay, now it asks, what should the distance be in the vertical direction? Usually, when drawing plans, we don't need this. But if you change it now, for example, as much as these move forward, you'll see that they also move upward. It's like the rows of seats you see in a football stadium. The more you see that the rows go higher compared to each other, they maintain a certain distance in the vertical direction. It creates something like this. Now, if I give a value here, for example, it asks what the distance is, and I say like from here to here, right? Okay, let me press enter to exit. I haven't told you yet how to use the 3D space in the code, but I'll go into the 3D space myself just to show you. So you can see what effect the value I entered for the height has made on the work. Well, as you can see when I rotate, you notice that these are also spaced apart from each other in the height direction. It actually creates something like this for you. All right, let me press Ctrl+Z to go back. Okay, once again, I'll select Array, Enter, select all of this, Enter, Enter. Now I'm back in the rectangular mode again. Again, here I enter the row mode. I say let the number of rows be 5. It asks what should the distance between each be? I say from here to here. It says okay, what about the height? I say no and press 0. Now I want to define the number of columns. I enter the column subcommand, select columns and click on this. It asks how many columns do you want? I say for example 6. See, now there are 6 columns. Again, it asks about the spacing. It says just like here to here the spacing is defined, and then again it asks for the vertical alignment. You can press enter, and in the end there's something else you can do if you want, even more options. Now look, in this direction of the columns, do you see? There are 2 arrows, 1 and 2. If you click on the one that's further back and move it around, the distance between the columns increases or decreases. And if you move the one in front back and forth, the number of columns changes. In this way, even in this direction, you can see it. Again, there are 2 arrows. If you click on this and move it back and forth, the number of these increases. And if you click on the one in the back and move it, the distance between them changes. So even without using numbers, you can easily apply the changes you want. But the next point is about the alignment along the path. That is our sweep method. Suppose I draw a path. Well, so far regarding this command I'm using, I haven't mentioned anything. And it doesn't matter to me either. I've drawn a curved path here. Now I'll give it a shape as well. And now with the help of the C command, I'll draw a circle at the beginning of this. Like this. I want this to be duplicated along this path and move forward. Now you might ask, for example, what is this useful for? Suppose this is a road that you want to draw the trees in the middle of that road or along the sides of the road. You can use this as the edge line of the road, and this one as a tree. Now later on, we'll talk more about blocks in the upcoming videos. This is supposed to be one of those blocks. Alright, now to duplicate this, all I need to do is use the array command again. Array, AR, tells me to select the object I want. I select this and press enter. Now it asks me which one. This time I'm going to use the path method. I select the option called path, and now it tells me to choose my path. I click on this once, and as you can see, it automatically did it for me. Well, of course, as I mentioned before, you can click on this arrow again. You can easily increase or decrease the distance between these. It's easily adjustable. Later, in the upcoming videos, we'll learn much more practical examples of these. Be sure to join me in the next videos as well. We have many examples ahead, like drawing ramps and similar things in the building itself. We'll be using this command a lot. See you in the upcoming videos, and make sure to subscribe to the channel.